Hi there. In this video I'm going to be sharing information that relates to neutralising a perm. You can find information in your resources, in your resource book and on your topic block at Inditech Online. Neutralising is a second part of a service where we perm hair from straight to curly. Now this service is a chemical service that impacts on the cortex of the hair, changing the structure of the hair from straight to wavy. In order to understand that neutralising process, you really need to understand the chemical process that a perm has on the hair shaft. So bearing in mind that the hair shaft consists of 3 layers, we're thinking about the perm service affecting the cortex, which is the middle layer of the hair. It is a process where we have 2 parts, reduction and oxidation. The reduction is a process that's referred to where we change the cortical fibres, the structure of the hair shaft and the cross bonds in that structure from cystine to cystine. Cystine refers to hair intact, the hair in its natural state, whereas cystine refers to those cortical fibres and cross bonds and ions being altered. So while it's being altered, it's referred to as being in a state of cystine. The hair has to go through that process to become wavy. We start with a strand of hair that is straight, and much like melting chocolate and reforming it into something different, we're going to change that hair from straight to wavy. So let's look at the chemical process of perming on the hair shaft. You'll find information in this diagram on the PowerPoints and also on page 4 of your resource. So let's have a look at this diagram that's on page 4 of your resource. This represents, it's a very simple diagram of the chemical process of perming on the hair shaft. These represent the polypeptide chains, and the ones that come across represent the disulfide bonds. Now a disulfide bond is created by 2 single sulfur atoms joined together. When the hair is in an unaltered state, it is referred to as being in a state of cystine. Now remember, that means because the hair shaft or the structure of the cortical fibres is unaltered. So through the natural process and the shampoo process, the hair is referred to as being in a state of cystine. During the reduction and oxidation process is where the hair changes to a state of cystine. So when we look at this diagram here, the perm solution has been applied. The hydrogen from the perm solution is attracted to the sulfur in the disulfide bonds. Now that separates or reduces the disulfide bond to single sulfur atoms, which is why it's referred to as reduction. So the hydrogen attracted to the sulfur separates the disulfide bonds and reduces it to single sulfur atoms. Now not all of those disulfide bonds will be broken. The amount of disulfide bonds that are broken will depend on how long the hair has been processing and the strength of your solution. And we don't want all of those to break, because if they all broke, the hair would fall apart. And that's interestingly what happens if somebody accidentally over-processes a perm and damages it beyond repair. Once the perm has processed for long enough and the adequate amount of wave and movement has been developed, we then need to move to the oxidation process. Now that occurs when the solution has been rinsed from the hair and the neutralizer is then applied. The oxygen from the neutralizer is important to create oxidation. It is the active ingredient that all neutralizer must contain to perform its function. The oxygen is attracted to the hydrogen, so the sulfur atoms can then rejoin back to disulfide bonds in the new shape of the hair. And that shape is created by whatever the hair has been wrapped around to form the wave. The hair at this point, while the structure is still altered, is in cystine. But once that neutralizer has been removed, the hair reverts to a state of cystine. And you'll see that the hair is now moving in a wave, so the disulfide bonds have rejoined with the hair structure in its new form. So just to recap, the process of perm solution or perming here is a process of reducing the cross bonds, the disulfide bonds, and then oxidation, where we oxidize the hair to rejoin the cross bonds. So now that we've looked at the chemical action and the chemical process of perming on hair, we need to talk about the chemical composition of Neutraliser, just so that you really understand that. As I said when I was explaining through this area, all Neutraliser must contain oxygen. Now that comes in several forms. It can be in a foaming form that is contained, once you actually mix your Neutraliser or pour your Neutraliser into your applicator or your applicator bowl and you sponge it up into bubbles, then oxygen will come from those bubbles. But it is also derived from several ingredients, and these ingredients are also available to you on page 6 of your resource book. Sodium perborate and sodium bromate and hydrogen peroxide are the key ingredients that are used in Neutraliser that contain the oxygen. And remember, we need that oxygen to perform its function. I'm going to just talk very quickly about the process of a neutralizing service. Now this is the practical element of the neutralizing service, and you'll be shown this at your training provider. There is a video on your topic block, and you'll also find information out from your senior stylists, obviously working in the salons as well. The neutralizing process is a two-part process. First of all, we have to remove the solution, and then we have to neutralize or add the oxygen to create that oxidation process within the hair structure. So obviously once the perm has been processed, your senior stylist will come to you and say, this perm is ready to be neutralized. So you'll need to take the client to the basin, you'll need to remove the processing cap, you need to remove any over towels, or make sure that you've got a really good seal between the neck and the basin so that you're not getting water running down the client's back. And you're going to rinse the perm rods in place for a minimum of 5 minutes, and that's generally how long it takes to remove the perm solution. If the hair is long, it may take slightly longer. If the hair is dense, it may take slightly longer. So just be guided by your senior stylist. Your senior stylist is bound to say to you, look, this hair is really long, you're going to need to rinse it for a little bit of extra time. But a minimum of 5 minutes rinsing is really important. If you don't remove enough of the solution, that'll impact on your end result. So once you've actually rinsed the hair for 5 minutes, you then go through the process of towel blotting the hair. You don't want to be rubbing the hair or the rods, because the hair is in a soft state and the cross bonds are all separated. So if you start rubbing the living daylights out of it, you're going to cause damage to the hair. So you need to towel blot all of the rods carefully so that it's not painful for the client, but so that it removes the water from the hair. Once you've removed that water from the hair and the rods have all been towel dried, you'll protect the client's skin and face, or you'll hold a towel in place so that the neutralizer is not going to run obviously down the client's face, and obviously not going to come into contact with the skin around the perm rods. Then you'll prepare your neutralized solution is according to your manufacturer's instructions. So some solutions are poured straight from an applicator bottle that they come in, some are added to water, some are foamed. You need to read your instructions and find out which way your neutralizer is best applied for best results. Apply your neutralizer to all of the rods and every part of the rod. If you miss areas, then you're going to end up with a weak result. So it's really, really important that you apply your neutralizer thoroughly. It's very easy to tell if a neutralizing service hasn't been completed properly, because a test curl will show that the hair is looking really lovely and the wave formation is excellent, but the finished result won't be as good. So ensure that you apply your neutralizer thoroughly to all of the rods and to every part of the rod. Once you've done that, you're going to actually process the neutralizer according to your MI. Now this will vary, so you need to read your manufacturer's instructions. However, for the most part, it's 5 minutes. The rods are then removed one by one and carefully from the hair, and a second application of neutralizer will be applied and just gently squeezed into the ends that are at the center of your roll. So as a perm rod is wound up to the hair ends are on the innermost part of the perm rod. And so it's really important that we leave the neutralizer on those ends, because the neutralizer may well have not gotten right the way through for an adequate amount of time to those ends. So you'll process, or you'll apply neutralizer to the hair ends, and you'll process that as well according to manufacturer's instructions. Now once you've actually completed that part of the neutralizing service, you will then rinse all of that neutralizer from the hair, and you'll need to apply, according to manufacturer's instructions, a post-perm conditioner. Now this is generally an antioxidant pH conditioner, which is designed to bring the hair back from alkaline to its natural state of pH. Follow your manufacturer's instructions and your manufacturer's recommendations. It is really important that you're returning the hair to the correct pH to protect the health of the hair as well. So the neutralizer has been rinsed, your post-perm conditioner has been applied, it's been massaged or left to process for as many minutes or moments as the manufacturers recommend, and then that is removed as well. It's important at this point that you are still not rubbing the living daylights out of the perm. You must just towel block gently, because the hair has been sensitized and the structure has been altered, so you don't want to be putting that hair under strain. Once you've towel blotted the client's hair, you'll return them back to the towels and capes and all of those procedures that come from working at the basin. There are several things that you need to think about looking after a perm. We don't use a fine tooth comb on a perm. We never brush hair wet, and we certainly don't brush a perm with a brush. If we decide we're going to blow wave the hair, and we are going to use the brush to blow wave, that's a little bit different. There'll be product applied, the hair will be sectioned, the hair will be treated gently. That's different to taking the client from the basin and suddenly deciding you're going to use a brush to detangle the hair. So just remember, any chemical service has softened or sensitized the hair, and we don't want to damage the hair. Once you've combed the hair through with a wide tooth comb, working from the hair ends to the scalp, and you've detangled the hair and you've got the hair lying in place, your senior stylist will tell you whether or not you need to apply or what the next step of the service will be. So now that we've sort of briefly gone through the procedure of a neutralized service, there is information in your resource book on this, but we're going to talk further about how things can impact on the result for this part of a perming service. So in the neutralizing service, several things can impact on the result. If we look at the result being a limp curl, this can occur if the perm solution has not been rinsed out thoroughly. So what happens is the perm solution is still in the hair because you haven't rinsed it properly or thoroughly, and the neutralizer is trying to act over a double amount of product. Instead of being hair that has no solution and the oxygen being able to actually take away that hydrogen, there's more product in there, so it's not going to work. As it says in the book, it spends more time neutralizing the lotion than it does the hair, so that's really important to remember. Limp curl will also occur if the hair hasn't been towel dried, and what happens here is the water that's left in the hair reduces the quality of the neutralizer or the strength of the neutralizer, so it can't perform its function. So that's another reason why it's really important that we don't leave water in the hair. An uneven curl is often the result of uneven rinsing or uneven neutralizer application. So if you're distracted when you're rinsing a perm and you're not rinsing it thoroughly right across the rods, then you will get an uneven curl. Or if you haven't spent enough time getting to the lower areas of the nape, then the lower areas of the nape are going to have a weaker result than the rest of the perm. So an uneven curl can mean across a rod, or it can mean across the head. So that's something to really pay attention to. Over hardened or damaged hair. Please use your timers and follow your manufacturer's instructions. A mistake that a lot of stylists make is thinking that just because the neutralizer is on the hair, it won't matter if it stays there while you go off and do something. That is not the case. The hair can become over hardened, and therefore the hair can become brittle and damaged. So it's really important that you set your timers, keep an eye on the time, and that you actually only leave the neutralizer processing for the recommended time by your manufacturers. Aside from these things here, it's really important for you to value your effort in the second phase of a perm service. The senior stylist has taken the time to design a style and produce this lovely curl and put the rods in there and get the process underway. Your phase is equally as important in terms of the neutralizing part of the service. So please take care to make a thorough and accurate job of the neutralizing process. Lastly, we're going to look at the safety elements of a perm service and what you need to think about in terms of safety elements of the neutralizer. You mustn't mix your neutralizer or prepare your neutralizer in a metal bowl. Everything should be completed in a plastic bowl or in a plastic applicator bottle. Make sure you replace the lids on the open bottles, because if you don't, the product's going to oxidize and it will actually render it useless. Make sure you keep, obviously, chemicals out of reach of children while they're in use. So if a mum has a child on their lap, don't just leave the trolley with the neutralizer sitting there for the child to drink or put their fingers in or anything like that. Obviously, ensuring the client comfort and that their skin and hairline is protected at all times. Give them a courtesy towel, use a barrier cream if their skin is sensitive, or place cotton wool there to stop the drips coming down in their faces. You don't want to be getting splashes in the eyes, you really don't, because it stings like mad. Ensure that you check the towels regularly. The client's going to be sitting there for a little while the neutralizer is processing, and it's really important that they're not left sitting with a wringing wet towel either around their neck or towels that are skewed and uncomfortable because they've moved while the client is having their neutralized service completed. So just check your towels regularly, make sure that they're dry, make sure they're in the right place, make sure the client is comfortable. Make sure the client knows what's going on. Let the client know you're going to be processing for 5 minutes. The client might be quite worried because they've not had a perm service before, and they might think, oh my gosh, she's walked away and left me. I'm going to be left with this, what's going to happen to my hair? So keep the client informed, let them know you'll be just processing for a little bit of time and then I'm going to be doing this next. Make sure all of the regular safety things are taken into consideration. Clearly, if you spill product, wipe it up straight away. Clearly, when you're finished with your bowls and your rods and things, move them and take them away from the client or away from children or away from an area where they can fall on the floor and become a problem. Make sure that you're cleaning all work areas, and make sure that you put the lids back on all of your products and put them away in an appropriate cupboard. Children can take lids off things quite easily, so you don't want to be just leaving it in your trolley and thinking that's okay, that little toddler running around the salon's not going to get it, because they might, and it is a chemical. So pay attention to the different safety factors. You need to demonstrate a knowledge of this within this subject. Today we've looked at the knowledge of the chemical process of perming and the impact of neutralizing as part of that service. And you need to demonstrate a knowledge of this as part of this particular topic. We've also talked about the procedure of a neutralizing service, and you will know or learn more of this in the salon or training provider that you're in. I've gone over the ingredients of a neutralizer and what the active ingredient is to create that oxidation, and I have also talked about the safety procedures of the neutralizing service. For more information on this, you'll find it on the topic block at Inditech Online, and I'm sure that this information will be valuable for you for your growth as a stylist.